Hi guys, welcome back. If you're new to my channel, my name is Carmen. Welcome. So are you a blue ray, indigo, crystal, or rainbow starseed? We're gonna find out right now because numerology instantly reveals if you are one of these starseeds today in this video. But we're gonna talk about what each one of these is first, right? We're gonna talk about the differences between them. How are they different, what they are, but first we have to talk about what a starseed is, right? Let's talk about what that is because some people don't know what a starseed is. I first wanted to say that everybody on planet Earth is a starseed to some degree. Okay, we all have galactic heritage, all of us. And that's because most people who have incarnated onto planet Earth, they have incarnated onto other planets first before they have come to Earth, because Earth is a very difficult planet to be on, and new souls are typically not allowed to come to planet Earth because it is such a difficult planet to be on. It's actually the most difficult planet to incarnate onto. It's an extremely difficult planet to be on, but there's a lot of spiritual growth and development that happens once you're here. So, so when you incarnate onto planet Earth, if you think of these planets as like universities, Earth is kind of like the Harvard, right? There's a lot of souls out there that want to come here because you get a very good education as a soul. You get a lot of spiritual growth and development when you come to planet Earth, right? So there's a lot of souls that want to come here. But there are some souls that are too scared to come here because they know how difficult this planet is. So because of that, there are some souls that don't feel ready and are a little too scared to incarnate onto planet Earth. So be proud of yourself because you have done something that some souls are too scared to do. You've also come to a planet that not a lot of souls are able to incarnate onto, right? If you think of Harvard, Harvard has a 5% acceptance rate. So not all souls are able to incarnate onto planet Earth because it is very challenging, and a lot of souls want to come here because there's so much growth that happens. So because of this, most souls on planet Earth have basically had other lifetimes on other planets first, right? That's where they get their experience, right? On other planets before they come to planet Earth. So to some degree, we are all starseeds, right? We all have galactic energy. But for some people, this is more so for others, okay? There's a group of people out there that are more starseeds, they're more galactic than everybody else. And that's because they haven't had as many incarnations on planet Earth. So maybe they've had one or two, or in some situations, this is their very first incarnation onto this planet. There is one group of people that has more of this within them. And this is the group of people that most people consider to be the starseeds, okay? So these are the people that basically haven't had many incarnations onto planet Earth. They've only had a few, if not any at all. And they've had most of their incarnations on other planets than our own. And they are a distinct group of souls that agreed to come to planet Earth starting after World War II. So World War II was a very devastating thing that happened to the planet, and atomic bombs were being dropped. And at that time, Earth sent a beacon out to the universe saying, I need help. And so because of that, at that time, the other extraterrestrial groups saw that planet Earth was in dire straits, basically, right? It was headed in the wrong direction. And Earth had always, at some point, the evolution of the planet was to ascend from a lower vibrational planet into a higher vibrational place to be. That was the plan for the evolution of Earth. Earth was never going to be a third dimensional place forever. It was eventually going to ascend into a higher dimension. But World War II was the breaking point. After all the atomic bombs were dropped and all of the devastation that happened because of World War II, a lot of higher dimensional beings saw what was happening on the planet, and a whole group of them decided to come and incarnate onto the planet to help raise the vibration and assist in the ascension of the planet, to help with the evolution and to take the planet to the place where it was meant to go. And so there was a whole group of higher dimensional beings from other planets that decided to come down in waves onto the planet to help make this happen. A lot of these were beings who had never even been on planet Earth before, right? They had never incarnated onto this planet, and they had no idea what they were getting themselves into, but they volunteered to come here to help raise the frequency of the planet, to help us to ascend. Because when Earth ascends, it also helps out the entire universe, right? Because we are all connected. If you want to find out what specific planet and what specific ET group you have had most of your incarnations as, check out my video about how to find out if you're a starseed and your origins. Check out my origins video. That is a really cool video, and you'll find out what group you exactly belong to and what planet you exactly come from in that video. I'll put a link to it below in the description box. But basically, the blue rays, the indigos and the crystals and the rainbows, it's a whole group of beings that are from higher dimensional planets. And that group of planets, there's a lot of them, right? It's not just one specific planet. There are many different planets that these higher dimensional beings come from. Check out that video so you can find out which planet yours is exactly. And so this group of beings is known as the starseeds, right? They are what the society or the culture considers to be starseeds, even though to some degree we all have galactic heritage within us. But this group, like I said, they're different because they haven't had many incarnations on this planet. They decided to come in different waves, right? The first wave of these starseeds is known as the blue rays. The second wave is known as the indigos. The third wave is known as the crystals, and the last wave is known as the rainbows. And we're going to talk about what the characteristics are of each of these groups and what the numbers are, right? What the numbers for each one of these groups is to confirm if you are one of these starseeds. Dolores Cannon writes a lot about this, so if you want to find out more information, then check out Dolores Cannon's books. She was a quantum hypnotherapist, and through the hundreds of past life regressions that she did on so many people, she discovered that everybody that she did a past life regression on was saying the same thing. They came to planet Earth and incarnated onto planet Earth because planet Earth needed help and needed to raise its vibration. And I'm going to show you quickly right now how to calculate some of these numbers in your chart. So if you don't know what these numbers are, then I'm going to show you how to do that right now. It's very quick and easy. All you need is your birth date and your full name. If you already know what your numbers are, you can go ahead and skip to that part of the video. I will put the timestamps for each group below in the description box. So I'm just really quickly going to show you how to calculate the 3 most important numbers in your chart. It's very easy. It only takes a few minutes. If you want a more detailed explanation, you can always check out a video that I did about how to calculate these numbers. I'll put a link to it below in the description box. To calculate your life path number, you take the month, day, and year of your birth and reduce each one of those to a single digit. And once you reduce each one of those to a single digit, you're going to add those 3 numbers together. And then you're going to keep adding the numbers together until you get a single digit. And that is going to be your life path number. Now, if you get a master number, such as an 11, 22, or 33, you don't reduce those because those are master numbers. And what I mean by reduce is add the numbers together. So you don't add the numbers together if you get an 11, 22, or 33. At any point in the process of the calculation, you do not reduce the master numbers. You just add them to the other numbers as is. To calculate your expression number, you're going to take the first, middle, and last name that was written on your birth certificate at the time of your birth, or whatever was written on your birth certificate, because some people don't have middle names. And you're going to find all of the corresponding numbers to the letters in that name. And then you're just going to add all of the numbers together for your first name, get a single digit for that, add all of the numbers together for your middle name, and keep adding them together until you get a single digit, and then get all of the numbers for your last name and keep adding them together until you get a single digit, and then you're going to add those 3 numbers together and keep reducing until you get a single digit. Unless you get an 11, 22, or 33, those are master numbers and you don't reduce them at any point in the calculation process. For your soul urge number, you're going to take the same name that was written on your birth certificate at the time of your birth, and this time you're going to find all of the corresponding numbers to the vowels in that name. Okay, and I usually consider Y to be a vowel these days. And you're just going to take all the vowels in your first name, add them together, get a single digit. Take all the vowels in your middle name, add them together, get a single digit. And take all the vowels in your last name, add them together and get a single digit. And then add all of those numbers together and keep reducing until you get a single digit. Unless you get an 11, 22, or 33, at any point in the process of the calculation, you don't reduce those because those are master numbers. You would just add them to the other numbers as is. Now, I will say that for the soul urge number, you can also check if you've had a name change. You can also check that name as well, because sometimes there will be a shift in energy when you get married and have like a name change or something like that. So it's up to you if you want to calculate it both ways. So here are the starseed numbers, and we're going to talk about each of the groups, the blue rays, the indigos, the rainbows, crystals. We're going to talk about all of them, and I'm going to put timestamps below for each one of those groups and their characteristics. But first I have to talk about why these numbers are the starseed numbers and where exactly to look for them in your chart to give you confirmation that you are a starseed. And I first wanted to say that you don't have to have these numbers in your chart to be part of this starseed group that is here to help the planet ascend, okay? You don't have to have these numbers. So please don't get triggered or disappointed if it turns out that one of these numbers is not in your chart. If you resonate with the characteristics of a starseed, which I'm going to go over in a few seconds, then you are a starseed and you don't need numerology or astrology or anything to confirm that for you, because your intuition is the most important thing. I always say to always go with your own intuition first. And by the way, if you're watching this video, then you probably are a starseed already, right? If you were led to this video, then you probably are. The numbers are just a way to help guide people and to give them confirmation, right? And to help people that are confused about this kind of thing. So, and often you will see these numbers somewhere in your chart if you are a starseed, but you don't have to. And check out my video on how to find out if you're an earth angel, because sometimes people that think they're part of this special group of starseeds will actually be earth angels, right? And usually you'll just be one or the other. So check out that video. I'll put a link to it below. So now let's talk about why these numbers are the starseed numbers and where exactly to look for them in your chart. So all of the different waves of starseeds that have come here, they all have some things in common with them. They all tend to be highly sensitive. They tend to be highly empathic, right? They usually are empaths. They often have psychic abilities. The veil is much thinner for them, so they often have abilities to connect over to the other side. So sometimes they will have clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, clairsentience. Even if they don't realize that they have these skills, they have it, right? And we all have these abilities. Everybody has these abilities, but they're more developed and often more enhanced and stronger within starseeds. And 2 is a highly intuitive and highly ultrasensitive empathic number. It's the number of harmony and balance and partnership. 7 is often a very psychic number because that is the number of going within and introspection, right? Going into the inner world. So they often have psychic abilities, and claircognizance is very strong within them. 9 is another highly sensitive, highly empathic number, right? 9 is the number of the person that affects the world and is out to help the world in some sort of way. These are like the hero types on the positive side of the number. They can be heroes, and they often have empathic, psychic, and channeling abilities. And they tend to be service-oriented as well. 11 is the number of the medium and the bridge. If you look at it, it looks like a bridge, right? Which represents the bridge between the two worlds. And one of their big purposes is to be the conduit between the physical and the spiritual worlds, which is often why their lives can be very challenging. So no surprise there for my regular viewers that 11 would be a starseed number, right? And so they have all of those abilities that the other numbers have. the empathic abilities, the psychic abilities, the channeling abilities. They have all of it. And it's also a master number as well. And with the master numbers really did come here with a big, kind of like a big purpose. They often can feel this throughout their lives. They feel like, that there's like more, it's like a more challenging kind of energy that they're dealing with. And, the starseeds, that's a common thread between starseeds, is that they all feel like they have a really big purpose and a really big reason for being here. Like they have a mission. There's a reason why they were sent here. And there was. We're going to talk about that in just a few seconds. But yes, for this reason, all of the master numbers, 11, 22, and 33, they all are starseed numbers. They're all a little bit more connected to the other sides, and the veil tends to be thinner with the master numbers. And they're usually highly sensitive people who tend to be empathic, and they all came here with a more challenging purpose, which is the starseed energy, right? A more challenging purpose, big reason for being here. So if you're in this group of starseeds, then one of these numbers will usually appear somewhere in your core chart. And I have all of the numbers in your core chart listed over here. It will either be your life path number, which is your main lesson that you're working on down here, right? It's your main lesson. It could be your expression number, also known as the destiny number. It could be your soul urge, which is your soul's purpose for being here. And this number usually brings you a lot of happiness and joy once you figure out what it is. It could also be your birthday number, your maturity number, which is who you become as you grow older, or it could be your personality number, which is also known as the inner dreams number. It will usually appear as one of the core numbers, and if it does, then that's definite confirmation that you are a starseed if you also resonate with the qualities of a starseed as well. But it can sometimes appear as one of the less significant numbers also. So one of the other numbers in your chart, and there's a lot of numbers in your chart that I haven't really covered on my channel. So, find out what your full chart is and see if it's one of the other numbers as well. Some of these numbers I have videos on how to calculate them, so I'll put links to them below. And some people were asking me if I give personal readings, and yes, I do give personal readings. I don't really announce it in my videos very often because whenever I do, I always just get flooded. I just get flooded with readings. So another way to confirm that you're a starseed is that if you have at least 3 or more of any combination of these numbers appearing anywhere within your chart, that can also be confirmation as well that you're a starseed. So now we're going to talk about which starseed group of beings or which wave you belong to. Again, if you want to find out what star system or particular planet that you come from, check out my video on how to use numerology to discover your starseed origins. I will put a link to that video below. But I want to say beforehand that when it comes to identifying which group or which wave you belong to, it's a spectrum for starseeds, okay? So if you're a starseed, you might fall into the category of one of these groups. That might be your main group that you were born into. But because it's a spectrum, at certain times in your life, you might resonate more with one of the other groups. So let's say you fall into the group of the blue rays or the indigos. But then, because it's a spectrum, at some point in time in your life, you might resonate more with a crystal or a rainbow, right? And you can go back and forth, right? Or if you're a crystal, you fall into the category of the crystal because of the dates in which, the time period in which you were born and everything. But, that's your main group. But then you might resonate more with being an indigo at some points in your life, right? So it's a spectrum. I want you to see it that way. Just because you were born at a certain date and time doesn't mean that you are locked in to that group. That will be your main group, but you can always go back and forth between the others. And sometimes, believe it or not, you will see other waves being born during particular waves. So for instance, when the blue rays were around, there were actually crystals, a few crystals and a few rainbows that were being born at that time, believe it or not. But what they represent is a shift in consciousness, right? The wave going up, 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 and up. You will see that as we look at the different groups. And the blue rays were the first wave. They were the first wave of starseeds, and they were born between 1945 to 1970. And some of them were born throughout the decade of the 70s. You will see that the 70s is kind of gray area. So if you were born in the 70s, you could either be blue ray or you could be an indigo. So check out both of those because it really depends on what resonates with you more. So they were the wave that came in right after World War II to help raise the consciousness of the planet after all the atomic bombs were being blown up on the planet and people, entities, beings, higher dimensional beings saw that we needed some intervention. So that's the first wave that came in, and they were born during the baby boomer generation. And not all baby boomers were blue ray starseeds, right? Remember that. This is a particular group of people. So not all baby boomers resonate with this. But you will notice that, for instance, when you see people that belong to the hippie movement, right? The hippies, the people that were all about peace and love, a lot of those people were blue ray starseeds. So you have to look at the pockets within the generation. And most of those hippies were blue ray starseeds. And that also includes some of the people born at the beginning of Generation X as well. So basically, their purpose was to test the waters, right? They were here to test the waters, to bring back information for later starseed groups, and to kind of prepare the way and prepare the path for the indigos. So they were laying the tracks down so that the indigos wouldn't have such a difficult time. And the blue rays often are the parents of the indigos, right? They are the generation that came before them. So they were the parents of the indigos, and they cleared out a lot of stuff that made it easier for the indigos. So you got to give them credit for that. These were the people that started the civil rights movement, the women's lib movement, the anti-war movement, and the environmentalist movements that later would be taken on by future starseeds, right? By the indigos and the crystals. So they started it, right? They got the ball rolling. And so you have to give them a lot of credit for that, because to be the front runner, it's always going to be extremely challenging when you're the first to do something, right? It's always going to be more challenging. And they really did make it easier for the future starseeds to come because they took on a lot, right? We all see those, those pictures and those images from a lot of stuff that happened in the 60s and the 70s. And we know that it was not easy for them. Sometimes they will feel like they don't fit in within their families, or they don't fit into the world. It's a feeling like they don't belong, right? Like they don't belong on the planet. And this is actually pretty common with starseeds, right? With all of the different groups, especially when they're younger, right? But sometimes it can follow them when they get older too. And if they aren't living their true purpose for being here, and they haven't found an outlet for all of this energy, either a spiritually based outlet, creative, or service-based outlet, often they will turn in against themselves, and this will lead to depression and anxiety. So when you see depression and anxiety within this group, it's because they don't have an outlet for their true purpose and all of this energy, basically. So a lot of challenges for the blue ray starseeds. This is definitely a more challenging group to be in, and they basically were here to fix family bloodlines as well, right? To change, things going on within the family also. And they often had a desire to change the family and to change the world, right? We see that with the hippies. These were people that really wanted to radically change the planet in a lot of different ways. And they were the first group to be highly intuitive and highly sensitive, right? They could pick up on a lot of stuff that other people could not pick up on, that would eventually grow and grow as the different starseed group waves came in. But anyways, we're going to start talking about the indigos next. So if this is where you're going to be leaving us, thanks for watching. And definitely leave a comment below and let me know if this is the group that you belong to. And share this information. It really helps to get this information out there when you do that. Like the video, subscribe. Love to have you become part of the family. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care. So now we're going to talk about which starseed group of beings or which wave you belong to. Again, if you want to find out what star system or particular planet that you come from, check out my video on how to use numerology to discover your starseed origins. I will put a link to that video below. But I want to say beforehand that when it comes to identifying which group or which wave you belong to, it's a spectrum for starseeds, okay? So if you're a starseed, you might fall into the category of one of these groups. That might be your main group that you were born into. But because it's a spectrum, at certain times in your life, you might resonate more with one of the other groups. So let's say you fall into the group of the blue rays or the indigos. But then, because it's a spectrum, at some point in time in your life, you might resonate more with a crystal or a rainbow, right? And you can go back and forth, right? Or if you're a crystal, you fall into the category of the crystal because of the dates in which, the time period in which you were born and everything. But, that's your main group. But then you might resonate more with being an indigo at some points in your life, right? So it's a spectrum. I want you to see it that way. Just because you were born at a certain date and time doesn't mean that you are locked in to that group. That will be your main group, but you can always go back and forth between the others. And sometimes, believe it or not, you will see other waves being born during particular waves. So for instance, when the blue rays were around, there were actually crystals, a few crystals and a few rainbows that were being born at that time, believe it or not. But what they represent is a shift in consciousness, right? The wave going up, 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 and up. You will see that as we look at the different groups. And the indigos were the second wave of starseeds, and they were the children of the blue ray starseeds. And they come from multiple star systems, right? You don't have to belong to any particular planet or star system. They come from multiple star systems, right? But they came in as the second wave, and some of them were born in the 1970s, okay? So when it comes to the 1970s, you could either be, indigo, or you could be a blue ray starseed, right? That's kind of like gray area for both of those groups. But so they started coming in the 1970s. That's when they started to be born. But most of them were born in the 1980s and the 1990s, between 1980 to 1999. And they were born into the millennial generation. Now, not all millennials are indigo starseeds, right? So remember, this is just a special group of people. But they were born as part of the millennial generation, and this is actually my starseed group. So yes, I was born in the 1990s, and I am definitely an indigo starseed. And I highly resonate with the indigos. I also resonate with the crystals. So remember, it's a spectrum. So I go back and forth between the indigos and the crystals. And leave a comment below. Let me know if you are an indigo starseed like me. Let me know. But even the aura of starseeds come up as very distinct colors. The blue ray starseeds, their aura is often blue. The indigo starseeds, when you look at their aura, it's always usually indigo, which is kind of like in between blue and purple, right? It's a very deep shade of blue. And I actually took an aura test last year at a shop called Laterra Gems. It's a shop in the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas. So if you're ever in Las Vegas, check this place out. It's really amazing. But I took an aura test there, and not only does it test your aura, but it also gives you like a 14-page report and shows you like which of your chakras are blocked, or how what your chakra levels are and stuff like that. So it's really cool, and it's all computerized and done on this really cool aura machine that they have and they like hook you up to it and everything. But on the test that I took, my aura turned out to be indigo. you know, it was mostly indigo. There was a little bit of blue and a little bit of purple, but it was mostly indigo. So that was definite confirmation for me that I am indigo. But in addition to the indigo aura, indigos often feel as if they were destined to do something big, right? They often feel this within them, that they came down here for a very big mission, a very big purpose. Often they don't know what that is, but they can feel it within them, right? They can feel it within them that they were meant to do something. They were meant to disrupt the grid, really. That's kind of what it is. They often feel like they were meant to change the world in some sort of way, or that they were meant to do something that will have a great impact on the world. And, you know, often they see what's wrong with the world, right? They see what's wrong with the world and they see what other people cannot see, and they want to fix it. And, you know, if you think about the chakras, which chakra is indigo? The third eye, right? So often their third eye is very, very open, and they can see things that other people cannot. They see what's wrong and they want to fix it. And even if they're not aware that it's open, it's often usually very, very open, right? Because what the third eye is just being able to see what other people cannot see. That's basically, in a nutshell, what it is. And they know that they came down to break down the old world, right? To get rid of the old way of being, the old paradigms that are not working, that do not, you know, that are resistant to love and peace being on the planet. Anything that's resistant to that, they want to break it down and they want to get rid of it. And they often really want people to just wake up, right? To become aware of this spiritual knowledge that has been hidden for centuries. And I can relate to this because I just want to wake up as many people as possible. You know, I want to disrupt the grid and just get this information out there. And that's one of the reasons I started this YouTube channel. So they are often seen as being very resistant to authority, and because of this resistance to authority, not willing to go along with the old paradigms and the old way of being, they often are seen as warriors, right? They're kind of like the light worker warriors, and they can often be very opinionated. Sometimes they can lack patience, and they're often very vocal, and, you know, people will see them as those that kind of rock the boat, you know, the people that rock the boat. They don't just go along with whatever is told to them. They see things very differently, and they can cause a lot of disruption because of that. That's not to say that they don't have a lot of kindness, compassion, and empathy like some of the later starseed waves, because they often do. You know, they often do have these traits, but at the same time, they're also light worker warriors often. Sometimes they will feel like they don't fit into the world, right? That they've always felt like they don't fit into their family or their communities, and they just feel like they're different often. So sometimes they just feel like they don't belong on the planet, right? They feel out of place. They know that they're different. And this is actually very common with all of the starseed groups. And especially when they're younger, right? But sometimes it can follow them when they get older too. And if they aren't living their true purpose for being here, and they haven't found an outlet for all of this energy, either a spiritually based outlet, creative, or service-based outlet, often they will turn in against themselves. And this will lead to depression and anxiety. So when you see depression and anxiety within this group, it's because they don't have an outlet for their true purpose and all of this energy, basically. They have a really high degree of emotional intelligence, and they often will have high IQs as well. They're also highly intuitive and highly empathic, and sometimes even telepathic. I did some videos on how to use numerology to find out if you're an empath or if you were born to be a psychic. So check out those videos. I'll put links to them below if you haven't seen them already. But yeah, you know, the veil for them is going to be thinner, right? It keeps getting thinner as we go through each group. And so the veil for them is even thinner than it was for the blue rays. And so they're going to be even more intuitive and even more highly sensitive than the previous group before them. And that also includes, you know, sensitivity in terms of their emotions. They were often seen as being very emotional beings, criticized as being overly sensitive, like, oh, why do you cry so much? Why do you take things so personally? This is often the kind of things that indigos would hear, like, why do you take things so personally, right? People would often criticize them for that. But that's just because they're, such a sensitive group compared to the blue rays, which are already sensitive, right? So it just keeps getting more and more as we go along. And this also includes sensitivity to the environment. So they were more sensitive to chemicals in the environment and food, chemicals in the food, and had more food sensitivities than we had seen ever before. And a lot of them were characterized as troublemakers or people with learning disabilities or, having ADHD or not being able to sit still, those kinds of things, right? But really, they're just highly sensitive to their environment and highly sensitive with their emotions and to all of the foods that they were taking into their body that they might have been sensitive to and not realized it, sensory processing overload that was happening, and really for this group of people, a quiet environment, without noise and distractions was often best for them, right? Or a very, organic diet that didn't have a lot of, the GMOs and other things that would have made them sensitive to. These kinds of things would have really helped out this particular group of starseeds. So we're going to move on to the crystal starseeds next. If you're going to leave us here, then thanks for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and share it with other people because it really helps to get this information out there when you do that. Leave a comment below and let me know if you are an indigo starseed. Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already because I would love to have you to become part of the family. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in my next video. Take care. So now we're going to talk about which starseed group of beings or which wave you belong to. Again, if you want to find out what star system or particular planet that you come from, check out my video on how to use numerology to discover your starseed origins. I will put a link to that video below. But I want to say beforehand that when it comes to identifying which group or which wave you belong to, it's a spectrum for starseeds, okay? So if you're a starseed, you might fall into the category of one of these groups. That might be your main group that you were born into. But because it's a spectrum, at certain times in your life, you might resonate more with one of the other groups. So let's say you fall into the group of the blue rays or the indigos. But then, because it's a spectrum, at some point in time in your life, you might resonate more with a crystal or a rainbow, right? And you can go back and forth, right? Or if you're a crystal, you fall into the category of the crystal because of the dates in which, the time period in which you were born and everything. But, that's your main group. But then you might resonate more with being an indigo at some points in your life, right? So it's a spectrum. I want you to see it that way. Just because you were born at a certain date and time doesn't mean that you are locked in to that group. That will be your main group, but you can always go back and forth between the others. And sometimes, believe it or not, you will see other waves being born during particular waves. So for instance, when the blue rays were around, there were actually crystals, a few crystals and a few rainbows that were being born at that time, believe it or not. But what they represent is a shift in consciousness, right? The wave going up, 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 and up. You will see that as we look at the different groups. But basically, the crystal starseeds were the third wave of starseeds, right? The third wave. And they were the children of the blue rays and also mostly the indigos, right? And you can be from any planetary system, right? Any planetary system or any planet can be your home group to be a crystal starseed, right? So, but basically, with the crystal starseeds, some of these were born in the 90s, right? We start to see them, some of them being born in the 90s. However, the majority of them, most of them, were born after the year 2000, right? Between 2000 to 2020. Is when most of them were born. And they were born during the Gen Z, right? Generation Z. Not all Gen Zs are going to be crystal starseeds, okay? So let's not paint them all with the brush. This is just a special select group within Generation Z that will resonate with being a crystal starseed. But this group is even more high vibrational than the last group, right? So it keeps going up, right? We keep going up in levels of consciousness and vibration. And this group is even more high vibe than the last. And they tend to be idealist. And they're very idealistic, and they don't like materialism. That's one of the big things that you will see with the crystals, is they really are very anti-materialism, and they're idealistic. They want a perfect world. And because the veil is even thinner for them, they know that this is possible. They know that it's possible to have an idealistic world where everybody is in harmony and in peace with each other. Because, they can see that, right? The veil for them between our world and the other side is a lot thinner, even than with the indigos and the blue rays. So they tend to be more kind and compassionate than even the previous starseed groups, right? They come in with a lot of kindness and compassion, and they're highly empathic, highly sensitive, highly intuitive, right? They can sense other people's energy right away. And with the previous starseed groups, the blue rays and the indigos, who were also highly sensitive and intuitive and empathic, but didn't often realize that they had this ability, they didn't even realize that they were empathic. With the crystals, they're very aware that they have this, right? They often come in and they have a lot of awareness right away. And they don't need to be taught, these things. They just get it. They know right away. They know that they're sensing other people's energy when they're doing that. And they know, if a person is negative and, it's that energy is affecting them, often they just know. They will distance themselves from that person because they can tell. Whereas with the other groups, a lot of them were not aware of this. Some of them were, but there were a lot that weren't aware of what was happening. And so the crystal starseeds, they basically came in with a lot of knowledge already. They have a more expanded, inclusive way of thinking, right? They want inclusiveness, and they have gentle, loving hearts more often. That's not to say that the blue rays and the indigo starseed groups that came before them were not loving and compassionate, because they definitely were. Definitely, for sure. But with the crystals, they just have less of a warrior kind of mentality, right? It's like less of a fighter kind of way of being. Whereas with the other groups, they have more of that kind of mentality because there's a lot of things that still need to be changed. So they came in with that because they needed that kind of mentality in order to make change happen, right? So they needed to be kind of like the light worker warriors. And with the crystals, they don't really need as much of that energy because a lot of the work is already being done by those starseed groups, or, it has been done and it's being done by those groups. So now with them, you see less of that, right? And it's more inclusiveness and more, okay, well, we can put down our weapons and we don't need to fight. Let's just love, right? So they're a lot more in the vibration of wanting everybody to be included, right? The good and the bad. The good and the bad. Everybody gets included and everybody gets loved, right? They're more aware of the law of one and unity consciousness than even some of the other previous starseed groups were, right? So they're less polarized. They're less likely to take sides, saying this side is bad and this side is good. They're less likely to do that. So they really often don't like taking sides, and they don't like anything that's polarizing, right? They hate the polarization. They're also very highly sensitive to light, sound, touch, and they often have sensory overload, right? So they're going to be even more sensitive to their environment than the other starseed groups were, right? The other starseed groups, we already saw this within them, but these crystals, they're even more highly sensitive to everything. Not just the food and the chemicals and everything, but also, the overload of sensory information from the lights and the sounds and the touch. And, because of this, often, it's common with this group to have autism and ADHD and ADD, right? And so there is a theory that with this group, because they are such a high vibrational group of beings, so high vibe that this this high level of energy that they house within them, it's difficult for the human body to handle this level of high vibrational energy. And so, you see this coming out in, the sensory processing issues that they have, where it's just overload for them. Sometimes they will feel like they don't fit in within their families, or they don't fit in into the world. It's a feeling like they don't belong, right? Like they don't belong on the planet. They know that they're different. And this is actually pretty common with starseeds, right? With all of the different groups, especially when they're younger, right? But sometimes it can follow them when they get older too. And if they aren't living their true purpose for being here, and they haven't found an outlet for all of this energy, either a spiritually based outlet, creative, or service-based outlet, often they will turn in against themselves. And this will lead to depression and anxiety. So when you see depression and anxiety within this group, it's because they don't have an outlet for their true purpose and all of this energy, basically. They have a very high degree of emotional intelligence, and they often will have a high IQ as well. And because they're so highly sensitive to everything, for them, the best environments are going to be quiet environments that don't have a lot of chaos and noise, and diets that are very organic and don't have a lot of processed food in them. That's going to be the best for them. And often you will see with the crystal starseeds that they gravitate towards those kinds of things. They gravitate towards environments where they're not in noisy, chaotic places, and there's peace and quiet. And they tend to gravitate towards a vegan or a vegetarian type of diet too, or at least some sort of organic diet, right? So we're going to talk about the rainbow starseed wave next. If you're going to be leaving us here, then thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you're a crystal starseed. I'm really curious to find out which one you belong to. And hit the like button if you like this video, and share it with other people, because it really helps to get this information out there when you do that. I would love to have you subscribe and to become part of the family. Thanks for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care. So now we're going to talk about which starseed group of beings, or which wave, you belong to. Again, if you want to find out what star system or particular planet that you come from, check out my video on how to use numerology to discover your starseed origins. I will put a link to that video below. But I want to say beforehand that when it comes to identifying which group or which wave you belong to, it's a spectrum for starseeds, okay? So if you're a starseed, you might fall into the category of one of these groups. That might be your main group that you were born into. But because it's a spectrum, at certain times in your life, you might resonate more with one of the other groups. So let's say you fall into the group of the blue rays or the indigos. But then, because it's a spectrum, at some point in time in your life, you might resonate more with a crystal or a rainbow, right? And you can go back and forth, right? Or if you're a crystal, you fall into the category of the crystal because of the dates in which, the time period in which you were born and everything. But, that's your main group. But then you might resonate more with being an indigo at some points in your life, right? So it's a spectrum. I want you to see it that way. Just because you were born at a certain date and time doesn't mean that you are locked in to that group. That will be your main group, but you can always go back and forth between the others. And sometimes, believe it or not, you will see other waves being born during particular waves. So for instance, when the blue rays were around, there were actually a few crystals and a few rainbows that were being born at that time, believe it or not. But what they represent is a shift in consciousness, right? The wave going up, 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 and up. You will see that as we look at the different groups. And the rainbow starseeds are the fourth wave of the starseed groups. So they are the children of the indigos and the crystals, right? And they are the fourth wave. And you can be from any planetary system, right? Your home planet can be any planet from any system to be a rainbow starseed. So these are the children that are being born around this time, right? Because some of these kids were born in the 2010s. That's when they first started to trickle in a little bit. And we see that some of them were born around that time. However, the majority of them most of them are being born right now, right? After the year 2020 and beyond. So they're coming in extremely high vibrational, right? Whereas the other groups were much higher in vibration than the rest of the world. The rainbow starseeds are even more high vibe than the other starseed groups. So they're the most high vibrational out of all of the groups. And because of this, they're the most sensitive too. And because of that, the veil between our world and other dimensions and the spiritual world is going to be a lot thinner for them. It is a lot thinner for them. And as we saw, the veil was a lot thinner for the indigos and the crystals, but can you imagine? It's even more thin. It's even a lot thinner for the rainbow starseeds. So, I mean, at this point, it's like, it's almost as if there's no veil. So kind of think of it that way, right? Whereas the veil was a lot thinner for indigos and crystals, for the rainbows, it's kind of like there's almost no veil at this point. It's like a piece of like transparent plastic at this point, where, I mean, they can just see all kinds of things. They're going to be able to see all kinds of things that we could have never even imagined, right? And they just come in with this frequency of pure love. And, just because they're coming from a world, a dimension in which that is the number one thing is love. And so they come down here with that frequency of just being in pure love and pure harmony and wanting everybody to be included and everybody to be accepted. They're going to have this energy of just being in pure peace and harmony and balance with no polarity, right? No seeing division, seeing things as good or bad, or people as being good or bad, or choosing sides between, this is the good side and that's the bad side. For them, there's going to be no polarity. Whereas with the crystals, there was less polarity. With this group, there's going to be almost no polarity. Not all children born of this generation are rainbow starseeds. Remember, this is just a select group of individuals that have come down with a certain mission, right? However, a lot of this generation will be rainbow starseeds. A lot of them will be. Maybe even more so than with previous generations. We're going to start to see an increase in starseeds within this particular generation. And so they come down here with this energy of just peace, love, harmony, no polarity. And they're very highly sensitive. That means highly sensitive with their emotions and their feelings, but also highly sensitive to light, sound, touch. They can often have sensory overload because of it. And often they will, we'll see this, that they're going to be given a lot of the diagnosis of autism, ADD, ADHD, or learning disabilities. And it's kind of similar to the crystals, but even more so with this group, because the human body, right? The theory is that the human body has a lot of difficulty housing such a high frequency because their frequency is so much higher, right? These people are beings of very high dimensions, right? And the frequency is just so high that the human body has a lot of difficulty housing that kind of high frequency and doesn't know what to do with it. And so that's coming out as autism, or will come out as autism, ADD, ADHD, learning disabilities, kind of similar to what we saw with the crystals, right? But it might be even more so with this generation because their frequency is even higher than the crystals, right? And they're even more sensitive, and they're more intuitive, and they're even more empathic and very telepathic too. So they're going to have even more psychic, mediumship, and channeling abilities than the previous starseed groups had. And it's just going to be a knowing within them. They're going to kind of just know that they have this, and it honestly doesn't even have to be taught to them. It'll just kind of be this knowledge that they've already come in with, and an understanding within themselves that they can do this. And this is kind of the climax, right? It's kind of the climax, the culmination of the other starseed groups, where we see the progression, right? Where it started out with the blue rays and it just got gradually more intense. And now we've reached the climax, which is the rainbow starseeds. And because they already come in with all of this knowledge and understanding that they have this knowledge, and they kind of just will assume that the world already kind of has this as well, right? Because to them, this is second nature. This is, it's just assumed that everybody already knows this. But they will teach the world a lot. There's a lot that the world, doesn't know, and they're here to teach the world. And they're also here to help to heal humanity too. That's one of their purposes, is to heal humanity, to bring a lot of awareness into higher levels of consciousness and to heal the planet. And unlike other previous starseed groups, they don't need to be as polarized, right? They don't need to have the fighter mentality and the warrior mentality, because the other previous starseed groups have kind of done that, right? They're doing that right now, and they're paving the way so that by the time the rainbow starseeds start to, take over the world, there won't need to be as many things that need to be changed, because that's being done right now. So they won't need to have that kind of polarized type of way of thinking. And so they're coming in with a more open heart and very trusting, more trusting of the world than with previous generations. And they might be seen as being naive because of this, right? We saw this with the crystal starseeds, that they were more trusting with a more open heart. And because of that, they were seen as being more naive and foolish by some older generation. So we might see that continuing on with the rainbow starseeds as well. But we will see what's to come with them, right? Because, they're still being born right now. So who knows what the world will be like. Even in the next 10 years, it's going to be a lot different than the way it is right now, because we're seeing so much change happening. Check out a video that I did about this this change that's happening right now. I'll put a link to it below in the description box, because I talk about the future of starseeds and the future of the planet in that video. So you might want to check it out. But because this group is so highly sensitive to everything, their environment, just like with previous starseed groups, this group is going to be even more, sensitive to the environment. So quiet, peaceful environments are going to be very important to them. They're probably going to gravitate more towards a quiet, peaceful environment and try to avoid noisy, chaotic environments. We saw that with the crystal starseeds, so we'll see that even heightened within this group. And a special diet is going to be imperative for this group. It's going to be imperative. And most of them will probably already know that, there's just some things that they cannot eat. They will try to avoid processed food. And even when you try to, if you notice with younger children, a lot of times, like, the things that other children of other generation would have wanted to eat, like cheese balls and Cheetos, that kind of thing, you try to give it to them, a lot of times they don't want to eat it. They will turn it away. So you will see that a lot with this generation, where it's like special diet is very, very important to them. And they know this. They will probably refuse to eat certain things. And a lot of them will probably become vegan. And also sensory diet as well, right? A lot of them will knowingly reject certain kinds of music that are in low frequency and low vibration. They will just automatically reject visual things, movies, things on TV, social media, anything that is low vibrational. They will automatically just avoid it. You won't even have to tell them. They'll just be like, no, nope, not interested. This is imperative for them. And they already know. Like, you don't even have to tell them. They'll just already be like, sorry, no. And they'll just, kind of avoid that kind of thing. But they're going to solidify all of the hard work that the previous starseed waves have done. They're going to solidify it, and they're going to bring it all home. And they will be the cherry on the top. You will see. Just wait and see. So let us know in the comments below if it turned out that you are a starseed, and which wave? Are you a blue ray, an indigo, a crystal, or a rainbow being? Let us know which one of these beings you are and you resonated with, and let us know in the comments below. And make sure to check out my video on how to find out what exactly your origins are as a starseed. And if you want to get a personal reading with me, I will put the information to that below in the description box. You can head on over to my website, starsalignwithcarmen.com. And if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and share it with other people. It really helps to get this information out there when you do that. I would love to have you subscribe and to become part of the family. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care.